5 here. 3, 2, 1. I see Tom. Feedback, where to go and who to trust. This is not the smartest guys in the room. I see my friend Tom Langan. What's going on, my man?
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. How we doing?
We're doing good. You sound a little bit like you're in a bubble. Hold on. Underwater. Not that much underwater, though.
There we go. Should be better now.
Okay, there you go. You sound good, man.
Yeah, that was my club deck. My club deck deciding that it wanted to mess around with the settings again. So
I like that it never keeps any setting. That's to make you scramble at all times.
Well, and what's crazy is like I know that, right? So out of habit now, every Wednesday before we go live, I check the settings. I did check the settings. All I did since then was I like closed out the house and then like reopened the house and like clicked back in to find the room. And in that time, it changed the setting again on me.
That seems fair. Yeah. What's up, Rocky? Rocky's my new friend, Tom. Rocky is quite motivating and is a straight shooter when it comes to scaling business and media and followings and things like that. Got a lot of energy. She's going to be at our Creative Con. I see she's got 2 hands up. She wants to come up and talk to us. I see a white hand and a black hand. That's a unity hand. I wonder, that would be funny if a white hand and a black hand meant unity hand. So anyway, we're going to...
Like a yin and yang hand?
Yeah, like a yin and yang. Doesn't yin and yang, does yin and yang together mean peace?
Well, I believe that it has to do with sort of balance, right? That the idea is that one side balances the other, that sort of opposites or differences balance out, right? And so it's not unity, it's more balance. But I mean, I feel like depending on the context, you're sort of splitting hairs. Like I think you can use it that way. I don't think anybody would be like, that's wrong. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they would. Maybe they get really mad at you and try to cancel you for it. I have no idea. Why don't you try it and find out?
No, I stay, I'm at Motivation Champs. We are right in the middle of the road on all things. So never too loud and boisterous about anything. So we're going to talk about feedback today. Good, bad, where to go, who do we trust, why do we trust somebody, do we need it, does it matter, is it good for us? There's so many ways to go on feedback. And should we tell everybody to shut up? Should we listen? Are there certain people we should listen to? So Tom, we'll go to you and then let's get to Rocky, see what she's got going on.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I mean, feedback's an interesting thing. I think there's a tendency for a lot of people, a lot of folks in business, to ignore feedback if it doesn't align. And maybe this isn't just a business thing. This may be like a human condition thing, right? But there's a tendency to ignore feedback when it doesn't align with your sort of preconceived ideas or how you see yourself or how you see yourself accomplishing things in the world, whatever those may be, right? So I think if feedback is counter to sort of our perceived notions of ourselves, our businesses, etc., it's really difficult to listen to. It's really difficult to take on board and to act on. And I think we're much less likely to actually act on feedback constructively if it does those things, if it challenges our preconceived notions. And I think the problem for a lot of folks in business in particular, when it comes to feedback, is when you receive feedback from, whether it be from customers or clients, whatever, when you receive feedback and it challenges your preconceived notions, your instinct, I think, is to say, yeah, but they don't know my business, right? Or they don't understand how my business works, right? And I think that's a bit of a cop-out. It's sort of an easy way out. I think it's incredibly important to appreciate that an alternate point of view can often provide insight that you're missing, right? Can help you see things that you don't see or can't see from where you sit as the business owner, right? And so I think it's really important to listen to feedback. I think feedback has to be sort of couched or contextualized with who it's coming from, right? So if you receive feedback from a customer or client, yeah, they don't know how to run your business, right? But they see a side of your business that you don't. So don't take feedback if a client, if a client comes back and says, I think you should run your business like this. Well, then maybe you take that feedback with a grain of salt, right? Or maybe dig a little bit deeper and see why or how the way you run your business is impacting them, and if it's negative, and what you can do about it. But yeah, if you get feedback from someone with a different perspective than you, I think at a minimum, you should listen and try to understand. And I think that's the place where, like, it often kind of people fall short, is they don't listen. And if they do, they don't really try to understand from someone else's perspective, what that other person is seeing, how they're interpreting things, how things you're doing might be landing with them. So those extra perspectives are incredibly important. And if you don't listen to them, and if you don't try to understand them, then they're going to fall on deaf ears. And ultimately, it is going to turn around and bite you in the rear end in the long run. So that's, I mean, those are my sort of initial thoughts on feedback. I'm sure that they will evolve as the room gives me feedback and gives us feedback on what I've just said. So why don't we open up the floor, and I'll do my best to listen and understand.
There you go. Well said, Tom. I will do as well. And it is, like you said, it is tough sometimes. You hear something, I thought this was perfect and then you hear from somebody and you're like, it's deflating, but that doesn't mean they're wrong. Right? That once oh yeah, I could have done this better. I didn't think about that. So I think a lot of times it gives you the opportunity to make something better. So let's get on. Rocky, feedback. You accept it, or you blow through it, or what do we got? How do you handle it?
Take a deep breath. Oh, sorry.
I thought she was saying she took a deep breath when
I don't know why.
Hey, if that's what you do when you get feedback, take a deep breath. That was you
I
could
tapped
go on.
on my space bar and my YouTube started playing. I apologize. No, I absolutely love what Tom said, and thanks for having me. So happy to see you. For the record, I didn't know that I had a black hand until you said something, so it's pretty cool. Feedback for me, ego got in the way of getting my feedback and receiving my feedback. For somebody, like, I've been in marketing for 11 plus years, and I know what I'm talking about, especially around certain things. So when I got feedback, my initial response is looking at who's giving me this feedback, right? I'm like, I have to judge the person giving me the feedback before I accepted the feedback. That's the first thing I would do initially. And then the second thing I would do is align it with the goals and what I have for myself, because I had a bad habit a while ago of taking feedback and shifting my brand or shifting my goals and trying to lean into what they said because they supposedly knew better or whatever the case is. And next thing you know, my whole business transformed into something that I didn't like. So I accept feedback, but I have a great bit of awareness about who I am, what I do in business, what I do in life. And then I take on what they say. And it's kind of like my mom says, like, take the meat and throw away the bone. I'll receive and see what I can take from it if I want to accept it or not. And then I'll move forward. Now, I will say, though, if I get a lot of negative feedback, then I will take an evaluation at myself. When I first started here on Clubhouse, I was horrible, y'all. I was the expert. You couldn't tell me nothing until people kept saying, you got a bad attitude. You got a bad attitude. You got a bad attitude. And I'm like, what? I don't have a bad attitude. I just know what I'm talking about. And so after I kept getting that feedback, I'm like, there's a reason why I'm getting the same feedback over and over again. And that made me dive back into what it is that I am and who I am and why I acted the way that I did. And I completely shifted the way that I acted because of that feedback. And my business grew, my community grew, everything just grew because I was able to receive the feedback and change it because so many different people had said it. So I really think it is a self-awareness thing. It is a confidence thing. You should always be opening to listening, but it doesn't mean you have to receive all the things, but it's up to you to gauge. But in order for you to gauge the feedback, you must know yourself well. If it's a business thing, you must know your business well. If it's a, mindset, personal thing, you must know all that well in order to, differentiate what is good for you and what isn't good for you. So that's my thoughts, and I'll pass it back to you.
Hey, I just want to say, I watch Rocky's videos, and the tips are amazing. So I have a question for you, Rocky. I dig the vibe. Rocky goes 3,000 miles per hour when she's teaching in her marketing videos and things like that. It's like blah, 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 do this, put this here, and I dig it. So I'm into it. So I wonder if you ever got feedback that you're going 3,000 miles per hour. Now I like it more, and I have a short attention span, so you probably keep me the whole time. But is that kind of the feedback that you've ever gotten?
Oh my God. I always I always get that feedback. I get it from random people. I get it from my clients. I get it from everybody. And I'm working on it, but I can't. It's me.
Yeah,
Like, I
I
don't know
think
how
it's a
to.
cool. I think it's a cool vibe. I was wondering if you're doing it intentionally, if you know it. So I'm
I'm just
down
high
with it.
energy, and I think that's what it is. I get so excited, and I'm so smart at what I do. Like, I just go with
She's
it.
on
So
9 pages of the computer at one time, and but it really is. It's good because you're given so much. Like I get so much out of it. It's like do this. So okay, feedback. Where to go and who can you trust? Who can you trust? Wasn't that a Public Enemy song back in the day? I think anybody that Public
Dom,
Enemy.
can,
Go
Dom,
on.
can I jump in? I know I'm cutting the line
Do you
here.
know about Public Enemy? But yes, you can cut in, Carrie. Go on.
Okay, so I've watched Rocky from the beginning of Clubhouse, and I'm like, I am gonna get on the stage and like get in front of Rocky because I loved everything she said, and she's super smart. But Rocky knows exactly who she is, and I think that's why she's been successful. Is because she's like, if I want to have pink hair, I'm going to do this. If I want to do this, I'm going to do this. Like that's the core here is that you better know who the hell you are, and that's how you'll resonate because that's the authentic piece of you. And who cares if like it's her delivery, it's perfect in my opinion. And I think that's what people miss. They miss like being the real them, like the real who they are. I just got my book yesterday, Dom. I'm so excited. I finally got my actual first copy. And when I held it in my hand, I was like, this is why I didn't go with the top 5 publishing house. Like, I wanted to do my cover myself because that's what I do. I know who I am. If I'm going to write all this stuff about what really happened to me, I want to be the one that shot my own damn cover. And I did. So I'm excited about that.
There you go. Congratulations, my friend. Okay. Feedback. Where'd you go? Who did you trust? Tom, what do you got for us? Hey,
Well,
I want to say, hold on.
Okay.
Since you heard me cough, I told you like 6 months ago on like when I brought that glue gun the one day that I'm finishing my basement. So we're to the point of sanding, and my office is down in that basement. Go on.
What was that thing you showed me?
Was it? It was a glue gun, right? What was it?
No,
Caulking
It
gun.
was a bedazzle gun, right,
Yeah,
Brian?
that's right. That's right. It was
That's right. He
bedazzling.
was bedazzling with his caulking gun.
Caulking gun.
yeah.
So we are to sanding stage right now. So I feel like there's a haze out there and in here. I think it's coming through the vents and everything like that. So if all of a sudden I start coughing and leave today, that's on all of you. So Tom, okay, go on. What do you got for us?
All right, I'm gonna try to remember what I was gonna say, because that was a sideways tangent I was not expecting. But I think it's something like this. Kind of coming back on the backside of what Carrie was saying about authenticity. I mean, I 100% agree that it's incredibly important to be authentic to who you are and authentic to your values, right? That comes with a proviso though, and it's not a warning against, it's just something you need to understand and accept. If you're going to be really authentic, right? If you are going to authentically represent yourself and authentically represent your values in the content that you share, in the way you put forward yourself and your business and your brand to your audience, that is going to do 2 things, right? One is it's going to give people who agree with you, who share your values, the opportunity to connect with you, which is incredibly valuable, right? From a human perspective and from a business perspective, it's incredibly valuable. But it's also going to create the opportunity for people who disagree with you to openly disagree and to let you know and to let other people know that you're not their cup of tea. right? Which is something I say here all the time, ad nauseum, and I will continue saying, is I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea, and I'm okay with that. That's one of the reasons why I'm okay with saying what I think publicly on the internet as we live stream everywhere, right? Because I am comfortable with who I am. I think my values are in a good place. And so I don't have any issues with sharing them and kind of being my authentic self publicly. But if you're going to do it, you have to accept those two outcomes, right? Because they are both going to happen, right? To varying degrees, but it's going to happen. So you have to be okay with it. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clear and understood.
Good stuff. Good stuff, Tom. Okay, let's roll on to Mr. Brian P. Swift, who sometimes disagrees with Tom, and that's okay because this is an open forum and we accept disagreements. So right on, Brian.
I think Tom and I are similar in a lot of ways. And I mean, if you don't disagree with your friends, then I don't know how I don't know what your definition of friend is, because you should be able to agree to disagree and come out of it sitting down having a beer or a cocktail and being okay with that. That's what life's about. Hey, Dom, with just a little construction advice. If you're sanding or messing with drywall, you should cover your vents upstairs or close them downstairs, because that drywall dust will get all over everything, and you have to wipe it with a wet anything, a mop, a towel.
I'm telling you guys, if you can see behind me, Brian, I'm telling you, it's in my throat. I'm telling you, it's on all the pictures in my office.
Yeah,
it's on my computer.
You should wear a mask, first of all, and I would cover the vents to your upstairs, or you're going to get it upstairs too.
Damn you, Brian. Where were you? You are my friend. Where were you 4 months ago? Why didn't you tell me this preemptively?
Oh, you were so busy just being you. So we'll get, but yeah, I'd still cover it up if you're not done. If you're done if you're done sanding, cover it up.
Yeah. In Brian's defense, he was here 4 months ago when you were talking about your caulking gun, which you kept calling a glue gun. So he was here. He was here.
I was here too.
You didn't ask him.
You guys are hilarious. Okay,
you didn't ask him the question. You didn't ask for advice.
That's right. If you knew, you probably read something on Google that just told you to sand it down. And
I chat GPT did, and
it
it just told me wrong thing.
So feedback. I think an important thing with feedback, and I agree with what everybody has said, is who's giving the feedback and how they give it. And I think sometimes that makes a difference, not just the words they're saying, but who it is in your life and how they give it. Are they giving it in a constructive way, or are they giving it in that tone that we've all heard, where it's not meant to sound as constructive as it is in a criticizing tone. So I think, if you really care about a person and want to give them constructive feedback, you've got to do it in the right tone and in the right spirit. I think that helps. I'm complete.
I think that's a great point, Brian. If we've all heard the term constructive criticism, right? If someone is offering constructive criticism, then I think what they're demonstrating to you is that they care, right? That they want you to improve, that they want to see you succeed, right? And that's why they're giving you feedback that is actionable, that you can actually use to improve and to grow over time. Conversely, if someone is only offering criticism, that's probably a good indication. If it's not constructive in nature, if it's simply kind of dragging you down, pulling you down, and just being critical for the sake of being critical, that might be a good line to draw in the sand in terms of which feedback you listen to and which you don't, right? If feedback is constructive, then it's coming from, I think, a good place, somebody who wants to see you grow and succeed. And if it's solely critical, then you can probably let that criticism roll right off your back. That person's not a fan, never going to be a fan, and they're not the kind of people that you want sticking around anyway. So I think that's probably a good line to draw. But thanks for bringing that up, Brian. The constructive criticism is definitely key when it comes to this. And so we were trying to be constructive, Dom, with the glue gun and the caulk gun debacle. Just to be clear, we were trying to be constructive.
And I think if anybody's going to be bedazzled, Dom, I think it's you.
I could pull off bedazzled. I should go back and get some old jacket I wore back in the day and bedazzled. Okay, we're moving on here. Feedback, where to go and who to trust. This is not the smartest guys in the room. We appreciate you showing up on Wednesday, listening wherever you're listening at or watching wherever you're watching. We added a new game, a new segment not so long ago, so we're going to throw this in here. This is Tom's Thumbs. Tom has to give an up or down on something at the end of it. So I just want to throw out something from pop culture to Tom or that's going on in the media, whatever. Last week it was NIL deals. Okay. So many people love nostalgia, Tom. But then you see all these places going out of business that are nostalgic. So I want to ask you, what do you think about an OG Pizza Hut? Is OG Pizza Hut good? Is it a thumbs up? Or is it played out and the time has passed? What do you got?
Okay. So, all right. So Pizza Hut in particular is where we will focus things today. All right. So here's the problem with nostalgia. Right. And I think we've all had this experience where you remember something from your childhood. Like I'll give you an example. When I was in high school, Pizza Hut had the all-you-can-eat pizza thing, right? Where like you go in, they had all the pizzas laid out on the heating trays, like at the buffet or whatever, and you paid whatever it was back in those days. You'd pay whatever it was, and you go in there and you could just eat pizza until you were sick, right? Which is basically what you did in high school, right? Like, I mean, you were completely irresponsible with the way you do things like that, right? So anyway, my football team, basically my high school football team had a deal. The coaches did this every season for everyone that made every single preseason practice. They would take you to lunch at Pizza Hut and pay for the all-you-can-eat pizza buffet, right? For only the members of the team that made every single preseason practice. And every year I was heartbroken, for lack of a better term, because I knew that I wasn't going to get to go to Pizza Hut for the all-you-can-eat pizza buffet because I was not going to make every practice of the preseason because my family went on vacation in the third week of August every summer since I was 7 years old to the lake where my parents now have a house, now have a lake house. But back in those days, we used to rent a cabin from a local family, a farmer up there who owned some cabins along the lake shore. And we used to go in the third week of August every year. So without fail, I was going to miss that week of practice because we were going to the lake, but it was our family summer vacation we've been doing since I was 7 years old. And I also wasn't prepared to miss it to stay home just to go to football practice. It didn't mean that much to me, but it hurt every year, right? Like it was actually something that I was upset about a little bit. I mean, I wasn't, crying into my pillow at the lake every night, but I was a little upset about missing Pizza Hut every year because of that. And actually in college, I went on my own. I went and I paid for the all-you-can-eat Pizza Hut buffet because I wanted to have that experience, right? That I had missed out on in high school. And so I get nostalgia. Like if you pulled up outside of my house today and said, "Get in the car, Tom, we're going to go to Pizza Hut. I'm buying the all-you-can-eat Pizza Hut buffet for lunch," I would jump into your car 100%. Absolutely. I would run towards it. And then we would get to Pizza Hut. We would pay for the pizza. We would sit down and we would start eating. And we would both look at each other and we would agree that it is not nearly as good as we remembered it to be, right? That actually Pizza Hut pizza is kind of trash, right? It's not good. It is not objectively good pizza by any measure, right? Is there a nostalgia factor? Absolutely. If you gave me Pizza Hut pizza, would I eat it? Yes. Would I enjoy it? Yes. Would it be good? No. I would only enjoy it for nostalgia. And unfortunately, I think the truth is that that experience would mean that I would be very less likely. That was a terrible way to say that. It would be very unlikely that I would go to Pizza Hut again, right? As a result. So does nostalgia, or should nostalgia by itself keep businesses alive on the scale that Pizza Hut was? No. Does it mean that maybe an odd Pizza Hut here or there will stick around? Yes. Do I think that's a good thing? Absolutely. I love nostalgia. I love looking back and revisiting, parts of my past as much as everybody else does, right? But do I think that it should sustain the chain that Pizza Hut once was? Absolutely not, right? So is nostalgia everything? No. Is it worthwhile? Sure, right? But in some limited quantities. So, overall, I think generally I guess this is a thumbs down, because I don't think nostalgia should keep businesses like Pizza Hut afloat ad infinitum, right? Indefinitely. I don't think that that's how things should work. But do I hope someday to maybe go to a Pizza Hut again and have a piece of pizza and experience that nostalgia while simultaneously being unhappy with the food that I've just put in my mouth? Sure, why not? So that's my thumbs.
There we go. Coming in hot with a thumbs. Tom Langan, thumbs down for Pizza Hut. So this is a good segment. You have to. He has to take a stand, thumbs up or thumbs down on something. There can't be like neutral thumbs or anything like that. So that's where we go. Okay, feedback. Where to go? That was Tom's feedback on Pizza Hut. Nostalgia isn't good enough. Feedback. Where to go and who to trust. Dr. Tachi, what do you think about Tom's thumbs? What do you think about feedback? Go on.
100%. And Tom, that's the thing. There is a nostalgia factor with something like Pizza Hut. You're 100% correct. But then when you go back and eat it, you're like, this is pure rubbish. This is not pizza. Especially, and you can identify, Tom. I mean, we're from New York State. That pizza is good in New York State. So Pizza Hut is like emergency pizza, but it's just the nostalgia factor, like you said, for it. And then also, quite frankly, advertising. It's trash, and there were better pizza places around, but the advertising would get you every time. So, in terms of feedback, two things. Like Rocky said, in terms of when she gave the narrative of somebody would say something and she would change things around. I think it's definitely, as she said, it's the numbers of people too. If you notice there are many people saying the same thing or giving you the same feedback, then that is definitely cause for you to say, okay, well, maybe something needs to be adjusted. Definitely. But if it's one person saying something or two people saying something, I'm like, okay, this is two people out of all the people that can do that. At this point, what I need to do is survey people to see if this is actually the case for many people. Otherwise, it could be just those two people. So another good thing to do is actually take stock and survey people to see if this is actually a thing, if this is something that affects everyone, or is it just these one or two people? So that's a good thing. In social scientific research, there's something called member checking, where you're checking to see if what you perceive is actually the case. So I think on the other end of this, you should also seek feedback, because sometimes we're so busy going along on what it is we're doing, what it is we're trying to prove, that we forget to ask for feedback and wait for the feedback to come to us. And then sometimes get offended when it does. Well, if you're checking all along the way to make sure what you're doing is useful, what you're doing makes sense, if you're getting value or people are getting value out of what you're doing, then you're not waiting to get the word for that. You are actually actively participating in the process of whatever it is you're offering. So definitely don't just take the feedback of one or two. And I agree with what everybody has said here. It depends on who, etc. But don't just take the feedback of one or two people. Survey to make sure that this is something that is widespread before you make changes, and do that whole thing called member checking, where you're checking in to see if people. So you're seeking the feedback. And I am complete.
I think there's a good point there, Dr. Tachi, and that is, as you were kind of saying at the beginning there, when you were referencing Rocky, and that is, consider the source, right? Always, feedback is incredibly important, and you should listen to feedback, but also you need to consider the source, right? And the source will help you determine the quality of the feedback. So I think that's incredibly important, because if you've got an outlier in one or two people who are hypercritical of something, but broadly people support it and or don't feel the need to comment on it, it's probably not something you need to worry about. So always consider the source when it comes to feedback. But yeah, I think great points all around for sure. What do you think,
I
Dom?
want to add really quickly.
Go on, Rocky.
To that point as well, is pay attention to when people are afraid to give you feedback as well, because I'm telling you, I did not think I was a mean person. But oftentimes people would come to me and they would say, well, I really don't feel this way, but this person feels that way. And I'm like, how come that person didn't approach me? Because you're not approachable, right? So you also have to look at your demeanor, because you won't get feedback if you don't look like someone that is approachable, that is open to receive the feedback too. So it's not just on them, it's on you as well. Because if you don't receive that feedback, you're going to keep doing things thinking that you're in the right when you may potentially be in the wrong or harm someone. So being open and looking like you're open, or communicating like you're opening, or even asking for feedback at times can help that as well.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I resemble that remark, Rocky. I 100% have had the same thing too, where people have said, I wanted to say blah 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 blah, but I thought you were going to get mad, or I thought you were going to react badly, or I was intimidated to say something. Right? I've had all of those things come back at me, which is like I find hard to wrap my head around, because I don't think of myself as an intimidating person in any way, shape, or form, but I guess I can be. And so I go out of my way. I sort of overcorrect in the other direction. I actively seek out feedback from people all the time. I ask people, what do you think? What about this? What would make this better? How can we improve this? Right? Like, I ask people for feedback all the time, because I know that for some folks, I am not very approachable, or seem that I would not be open to feedback, even though I absolutely am. So, 100% take that on board. I've had the same thing happen to me, Rocky, and I think it's important to actively seek out feedback as well. So, yeah, appreciate that.
I'm digging the member checking. I'm digging the actively seeking feedback. I think it's so important, and also understanding who you're asking. So I will weight something from one person more than the other. Like if Tom told me something about production, I might weight it more than somebody who made their first video. If my wife tells me something about something I asked, but I would seek it out, and I would accept, well, she's coming from here, so I accept that feedback, because she cares for me, she loves me, and all these things. Doesn't mean that if it comes to how to hold a camera or write a book or edit a book, that I would take that advice, but I would surely listen to her and seek it out. I had a screenwriting group I'm in the other day, and I put a log line in it, and I actually asked the group. I said, I'm trying to move forward every day this year with this project. Here's my log line. Check it out, beat it up. Tell me what I did wrong. Tell me what I did right. I am open. I accept it. I am thankful for it. That's how I wrote it, because I wanted them to know, like, hey, if you think this sucks, please tell me it sucks. If there's some good, tell me there's good, and I'm all right with it. Meaning, like, I'm seeking it So I'm okay. And some people said, what the hell? Somebody said, I don't know what the hell you're talking about here. I don't know what any of these words mean. Well, that was fair because I was trying to be too clever. So that told me right off the bat, oh, I think I'm such a great writer. I'm not even talking in a language that they can understand. That's dumb. I can I can simplify what I'm saying and say it more succinctly. So there was great feedback. I made connections, which I really wanted as well. I made connections, asked more questions. Some of the feedback I liked, some of it I didn't, but all I said, interesting. So feedback on, I could go feedback, thumbs up, Tom, but that's not my segment. Carrie, what do you got for us?
Okay, Dom, you know what? I think you should do what you want to do. And there's a place for feedback, but I had a really good editor for 10 weeks when I first started writing. And I had all these, pop culture references and obscure lyrics and all this stuff. And and I love it. It's who I am. And so
She was making this good point, and she ditched out completely. She didn't just ditch us; she ditched the whole room. Tom,
It seems like Carrie hit the wrong button by accident. Oh, there she is. She's back.
okay, Carrie, we were just talking about how you ditched us right in the middle of what you were saying. So continue. Go on.
Okay, sorry. So I had a really good editor for the first 10 weeks of my book. And I think he really set me up for success because he said, if you write where, simply, like you just said, Dom, where you got that feedback, he said, don't write down to the audience. Make them look it up. Make it so, make them not understand. Make it so thought provoking that they have to figure out what you're saying. I'm not saying all of your books should be that, but if you always have to please the audience and you stray away from who you are, that's a mistake too. So there's feedback, and then there's a time to say, I think this is general, this is who I am to the core, and I'm willing to take a risk because I think the rewards are always in the risks. And I know that from my covers, where I'm like, oh God, I'm going to shake some shit. I'm going to get, in trouble with the press here, or things are going to go sideways. But it's always in those moments that you kind of break through. So that's my feedback.
Good stuff. Okay, hold on. Eric, we're going to jump to Eric real quick, and then to David. What do you got on that, Eric?
So it's interesting. I'm right now acting as a judge in a publishing contest. And there's one book that I swear they used a thesaurus for every other word. And I'm reading it and I'm like, I am getting so confused, trying to decode the words. And the message that you're trying to share is really bottom of the shelf message. Your audience is very they just want to come in and get some stuff and get out. And I'm doing another book, which is really, just looking at the cover and reading the foreword, I'm like, oh, this is a little bit on the academic side, and the language matches. I think when you're looking for feedback, especially from somebody outside, you have to say, here's who I'm talking to. Here's what I expect from them. Does this book meet them where they're at, or slightly ahead of them? But you can't write at an academic postgraduate level a book on how to overcome depression, because your audience isn't going to read it. They're not there for it. So yeah, sometimes you got to dumb it down. I apologize.
Okay, and that's from a publisher. Well said. Sometimes I worry as a publisher, sometimes, Eric, that I don't want people to have to put the book down for any reason. So sometimes people get into trauma and they give too much detail about the trauma. I know, let's say if they're trying to help people overcome depression or certain mental health or abuse or something like that, and they go too deep into the trauma, I know the reader is going to have to put that book down because they can't handle it either. They're not ready for it. So the same thing happens with using the big words and stuff like that. Sometimes if the reader has to put that book down, are they going to come back to it? So that's something to be cautious of that. But I get what Carrie's saying about not not dumbing it down too much and not being too high above them and doing what you love. So go on, Tom.
Well, I was just going to say, like, one of the things I have like one very specific experience, right, to draw on in this particular field, but that's writing my book, right, and having my book published, legendary, available wherever books are sold. Sorry, I had to do it. But what the thing that popped into my head was, we worked really hard, myself and my publisher worked really hard on that book, to make it conversational. Now, I tend to break out some obscure words and terminology here and there, right? Like, as I've been sort of jokingly criticized for, lovingly criticized for here. Sometimes I use words that people are like, "What? Where did that come from?" Right? It's part of who I am, right? So we didn't shy away from that. But the thing is what we tried to do is to try to get the tone consistent with my conversational tone, right? And I think we achieved that because I've gotten the feedback from multiple people. Not only is the book an easy read, but when they read it, they actually, if they know me, they can actually hear my voice in their head kind of saying the words they're reading, right? They hear it in my voice. And that to me was that was the ultimate aim that we were going for. So I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is really being authentic to who you are as the author, especially if it's a nonfiction book, right? Being authentic to who you are as the author and making sure that you, as the sort of protagonist of the book, as the author or the person who's narrating it, essentially, comes through, right? That your character, your personality sort of shines through the written word, and that hopefully people will be able to hear you and hear your voice as they read the book. So I think in some cases, authenticity, like don't not use words that you would normally use in conversation because you're afraid that people aren't going to know what they are. I think if it's authentic to who you are, I say go for it. But again, like I said, as I sort of couched that, I literally have one experience. Take it for what it's worth.
Oh, fair. I was having a call with an author yesterday who's writing a children's book, and I would give the complete opposite advice for somebody writing a children's book, right? Because who is reading the book? Is the kid reading the book, or is the parent reading the book to the kid? And so that would change instantly. So what age are they? Who's reading the book? So how you would choose your words, 100% different in that case. That would be feedback from me, who's published a lot of children's books. They could have a complete miss if they put out a book for 3-year-olds with giant words, or teens or whatever. Go on, Tom.
Yeah. Absolutely, 100%. Audience matters, right? Audience definitely matters. And that's theoretically a work of fiction, probably, right? Anyway, so different case. But yeah, audience matters. Who are you talking to? Who's your audience?
All right, come on now, let's go. Feedback, where to go and who to trust. I think we can trust David down here. David Kidd, it says great, I'm looking at his profile picture. It says great lyricist only. So 1, I need to know what that means. And 2, David, what's your thoughts on feedback, where to go and who to trust? What do you got for us? David Kidd, what do you got, man? Oh, he's working. Okay.
He says he's working. He can't. So I guess he can't talk.
Okay. So type in what great lyricist only means. Is that who you work with? How do you determine that? Go on. Feedback. Where to go? Who to trust? Eric, we didn't get your thoughts straight up on feedback. Then we're going to go to Julie. So feedback on a normal day, somebody giving you feedback, you accept it. How do you find the right feedback? What do you got, my friend?
So feedback to me, I have to figure this, like, what is the intent of the feedback? Is it to make me better or to point out my mistakes? And if it's to make me better, I'll sit and listen all day. But if it's somebody just trying to show their superiority or show me what I don't know, I'm like, that's not benefiting me. That's benefiting your ego. And so I can quickly tune it out.
That's a good one. I had somebody yesterday tell me we were having a business conversation, and they told me, well, and I didn't necessarily like the proposal, and they were saying, well, you got to understand the ROI, and as soon as the feedback, I was so annoyed by it. I was like, I understand the metrics of business. You can ROI this all you want. Your proposal sucks. That's what I wanted to say. So I get you, my friend, on that. Okay, feedback, where to go and who to trust. Julie Loken, what do you got? You accept feedback, or is it only from Julie Loken? I will tell you this. I have a website. Julie Loken, on my website, motivationchamps.com. I had books in the background, and I didn't want books that you could like see all the names of. So I just had books that were like Russian, or the spines of them you could barely make out, but they were in a different language. Julie hated it, and she told me it about 50 times, in a nice way. She wasn't wrong, but I needed a picture to fill that whole banner or whatever, and they looked cool, they were worn, that kind of thing. So after she told me about 20 times, I started looking into pictures, and then finally, because she wasn't wrong, she was in a loving place. She was like, why aren't they at least in English? It was fair. So then I accepted the feedback and asked my person that does my website for me. I said, hey, when you get around to it, can you change these? Because you weren't wrong. But at the point on my list of things that I had to do that day, it was 10,000, and then it moved up to 100 or 10, and it made the list of Franklin Covey's ABCD things I got to do today. It became a D to a B to a C, so it finally got done. So thank you, Julie, for the feedback. I appreciate you. How do you handle feedback?
Well, this is interesting, and your website looks amazing, by the way, Dom. Have we talked about solicited and unsolicited feedback? I think there's a huge difference. Even though I gave you unsolicited feedback, we trust each other that we're doing it for the greater good. But, people who give unsolicited feedback, just maybe pop that question back to you guys.
Dom, sorry, I just want to say about
what do you got?
I think I can speak on Julie Loken's behalf. She is a whippersnapper, that Chicago girl of ours. I changed my book cover because of her. And I'm like, Julie, we're not going to have a discussion. I've been doing covers for 30 years. Like, I think I know a cover. She's like, oh, I think you're too busy taking care of your sick parents and everything else. Like, you're kind of missing the mark. So that was very valuable. And I think, and I listened to that, and I did change based on her heart sticking up for me. So I love that she did that to you too, Dom. That's amazing.
She's the best.
This could get me in trouble today, guys.
So Julie is an equal opportunity offender.
Yeah, there you go, Eric. Unsolicited, but if you're like, I tell people all the time, I said, like, once we connect and we become friendly, I said, I might reach out to you and ask you, don't take offense to it. I want to know, like, why are you doing what you're doing? Brian, have I ever reached out to you and said, hey, why are you doing that? Or what,
Yeah, you have. But you know what? In my world, friends and family don't need my okay to give me their opinion. So even though might be unsolicited, I think that a good friend would tell me something that I need to hear, like you have, Dom, without me soliciting it. So I respect somebody that will give me feedback that's unsolicited if it's done, as Tom talked earlier, in a productive, caring way to help me. So I'm all for unsolicited by the right people, done the right way, because they're trying to help you, and it's done in the right tone. And I don't need my friends who know me know they don't need my okay to give me any type of feedback. So that's just the way I feel about it.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I appreciate the feedback you've given me. A lot of times, something I struggle with is like, although I promote all day, every day, I think I promote all my authors, all the things going on all day, every day. That's my business. Like when the editors are editing, cover designers are cover designing, I promote everybody all day, any way I can. Brian tells me multiple times with things going on, Dom, you got to promote yourself more. Got to promote you or the business or this. Well, I thought I was, but oftentimes he comes back and it does make me think, well, this is my friend. I know the guy loves me. Okay, I got to figure out, because I know this is an internal battle, how to promote within the realms of what I'm comfortable with, but also within to grow a business appropriately. So I'm appreciative of that. Okay, Tom, feedback, where to go, who to trust, and is it that time of day? What do you think?
Oh, I think so. I think it's a few minutes past show and tell time. So let's dig in. What do you got this week, Dom? What
Okay,
do you
today,
have at your fingertips?
So I clip these on Opus all the time. I got to figure out how to get things in frame so that so that my show and tell piece is in the middle of the screen. Sometimes it goes over here, sometimes it goes over there. I'm working with Opus Clips. I like Opus Clips. They should sponsor me, but I can't get stuff in the middle of the frame when I do show and tell. So on this show and tell, I told you last week I surround myself with things that make me smile. Another thing that makes me smile, I had pictures. This is how weird I am. I had posters of this guy on my wall growing up, Hulk Hogan and other people too. But this is Ricky Henderson. This is my Ricky Henderson card. Ricky Henderson, he just passed away recently. He is the all-time greatest base stealer. It's not even close. He looked cool. He was muscular. He ran different. Stole bases like crazy. So when he broke the all-time record, Ricky Henderson, this is what I like most. When he broke the all-time record, he stood there at the base. He pulled the base out of the ground, and then they gave him like 5 minutes to give a speech. He does about a 1 minute and 10-second speech, and it ends with, "Today, I am the greatest of all time." And that confidence, Ricky Henderson breaking records. So my Ricky Henderson card is what I want to show you today. That's all I got, Tom.
I like it. I like that sentiment too. He knew that was a high point for him. He knew it was a high point in his career, and that likely it was going to be sort of the highest point, like in terms of record breaking, that he ever saw in his career. And seems like he just took advantage of it. I love that. Like, way to seize the moment, right? Funny anecdote. So like there was a kid I knew growing up, Andrew, who was huge into baseball and had a big baseball card collection. He and I became friends for a while in elementary school. And I wanted to like get into collecting baseball cards because he was so into it. I wanted to have what he had, right? I wanted to be excited about it the way he was. So I ended up buying a whole bunch of baseball cards, getting like the 3-ring binders with the sleeves to like sort the cards and keep them together and stuff. And I think it lasted like a grand total of like 3 months or something like that. I got sorting them, and then I realized like how much work it was to sort of like figure out what was valuable, what wasn't valuable, how to keep things, where to keep them, like how to sort them, trading them, like all of it. It was so much more involved than I realized initially that I completely just walked away from it. So somewhere at my parents' house in the attic, there are likely a couple of binders full of baseball cards that I abandoned very quickly in elementary school once I realized just how detailed and involved baseball card collecting was, and how not cut out for it I was. So a little learned life lesson there from elementary school Tom, trying to collect baseball cards. But I love it. And I love that you still have that kind of stuff. Like, I've never really been a collector in that way, but like obviously you love collecting memorabilia. For anybody watching online, if they can see the wall behind you, they know that that's 100% true. And that you have boxes and boxes and boxes of more memorabilia in your basement. So yeah, I think it's very cool that you have held on to that passion and continue to collect and enjoy and appreciate the things that you've collected over the years.
Thank you, sir. No, appreciate it. I tell you, we all do dumb stuff at some point. At one point, when I was going through some tough times as a late teen, or I sold a lot of my stuff. Wish I wouldn't have, and the amount of money I got from it probably wasn't enough to make it worthwhile. So I probably, Tom, care more about him now than I ever did, because I don't have everything that I did have. And I know that it was a miss to do that. Sometimes you do things like that. Okay. Feedback, Tom. Okay, here's what we're going to do. One quick sentence from everybody on feedback. And we're going to go around my room, how I see it, and Tom's going to wrap us up. Okay. Julie, you got a final thought on feedback? Go.
Listen more than you talk.
Boom. Eric.
I'm sorry, I'm listening to what Julie says.
Thank you, Eric.
Well done. And the joke. David said he's working, so I think he's still going. Carrie, final thought on feedback? They're all listening, Tom. All listening more than they talk. So that's what Eric started this. Okay, Dr. Tachi, you can talk about hats or give us your final thought on feedback. What do you got?
I like hats, but feedback is the way that you learn and grow. Otherwise, you're in an echo chamber. But beware of where the feedback is coming from.
Swift, what do you got?
Sometimes you have to be more interested than interesting.
There you go, brother. I'll give mine is just don't be afraid of it. It can only help you. Tom, go on. What do you got, my friend? Wrap us up, Tom. Put a bow on it. Beauty. I am sorry. I didn't give the wrap up as much respect as it needed. Tom, with the special wrap up that only he does every week. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, I like how you sort of couch that as like, oh, I didn't do my job of introducing this properly, when you and I both know that really what that was about was trying to like up the pressure a little bit on me to really deliver on the wrap up. So well played, as if you were trying not to shortchange me, but in reality you were upping the pressure. Appreciate it. Look, I think as everybody has alluded to, we've all talked about and mentioned at some point during the conversation today, feedback's incredibly important, right? But I think there's a few sort of provisos that you should take into account when it comes to feedback, right? I think Julie was dead right when she said, listen more than you talk. Absolutely, you should listen when it comes to feedback. The only way to take it on board to make it actionable is to listen to it, and to try to understand it. As I mentioned before, if you don't listen and you don't understand, you can't act. So in order to make feedback actionable and actually useful, you have to listen and try to understand. I think Dr. Tachi was also dead right when she said and highlighted the idea that feedback is how you learn and grow, right? Make sure you're not in an echo chamber where everybody is just yesing you to death and patting you on the back and giving you a thumbs up nonstop. Because if you're honest, the people who mean the most to you in your life, the people whose opinions you value the most, the people who are the closest to you, are also the ones who are oftentimes open to being critical of you and kind of pulling you up and calling you out when you stray from your sort of path, right? So make sure you don't end up in an echo chamber. Make sure that you listen and learn and grow from the feedback that you get. And ultimately, similarly, I think what Brian said, be more interested than interesting, was a really, really good point. It reminds me of a great scene from Ted Lasso. I forget what season it was. I think it was the first season of Ted Lasso, when they're in the bar playing darts, right? And he talks about the Walt Whitman quote that he saw painted on the wall: "Be curious, not judgmental." Right. And I think that's an important thing to bear in mind. You should always be curious. You should always listen. You should always take on board feedback. And you should not necessarily be judgmental of it or its source. But you should take those things into account, right? But rather than sort of prejudging or being judgmental as to the criticism that you receive, be a little bit more open to it. Be open to receiving feedback. Be open to acting on the feedback you receive. Because ultimately, if the feedback is coming from a good place, if it is constructive, it's all meant to make you better, right? To drive improvement. And that's, I think, the big lesson I want to take away from our conversation today is that feedback drives improvement. So be curious, not judgmental. Listen to the feedback. Listen to those around you and those that call you to task when you need to be called to task, as we all do, as I do often. So listen to folks when they call you to task, when they give you feedback. Try to understand it, appreciate it, and act on it. It'll make you better. So that's all I got for today. Thank you so much to everybody for being here. As always, we appreciate you guys. We love you guys. You guys are the reason why Dom and I are not the smartest guys in the room. So for Dom, I'm Tom. Thanks so much again for being here with us this week. We will see you guys next Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. Join us and be a part of the conversation. Until then, have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. We love you guys. Bye-bye now.